Hi, my name is Carlos Sotelo, and now I will be talking about the effects of 9/11 and mental stage. So, the hypothesis that we hypothesize that exposure to 9/11 related traumatic events would increase the likelihood of screening positive GAD means general anxiety disorder symptoms or mortality salience. So, in both articles, they didn't hypothesize the same thing, but both of them had the same related thing. If we expose people through questions of what happened on 9/11 or how they made them feel through 9/11, the reports will be significantly high or just high in general. So before I get into the theory or to the study, I want to go over through terror management theory. Terror management theory is when the traumatic individuals disassociates a traumatic event from one to another, or learns to live with it and accept that these unfortunately things happen. So, a mind has a way to basically a defense mechanism to help the individual like live through their life without having to go that traumatic happening. So basically, in through 9/11, when people who experienced 9/11 and who lived in New York and experienced it, who lived in New York and experienced 9/11, when you tell them about an airplane, they probably would think about a crash. So the mind will focus like, okay, when you think about airplanes, just think about Hawaii. Or when you think about a building, usually New Yorkers who are traumatic, they'll think about like obviously the Twin Towers. In this case, they'll probably be like, oh no, this thing about building as the Empire State Building. Empire State Building. So they'll do the terror management theory basically focuses on getting over your fears, the mind getting over your fears by helping yourself not think about that traumatic exposure. So in both articles, they did an evaluation. They asked them questions about 9/11, like, okay, how does black smoke make you feel? Or when a person screams, how does that make you feel? Or what does that make you think of? The other article actually did a 17-item scale by asking them questions. So there were some questions that were a bit shorter, and other questions were very long and brief, and very long and descriptive. So in every article or every study, they had a very 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 long questionnaire. And for others who couldn't make it through, like either through the clinics or other forms of evaluation or places, they will call you over the phone and ask you questions through the phone. Other evaluations was a Richter scale as well. Evaluations, or I guess you say surveys, were very big among these studies. They want to accumulate as much information to give the best to back up their hypothesis. So there was a Richter scale, and this was actually on the first one of the articles that briefly talks about that and actually backs up the whole terror management theory, that they didn't really come out as high. So when they're asking these questionnaires on the first article, it said that most of these people didn't really report as high anxiety or mortality salience as they would like it to be. They thought there was going to be higher, but in reality it wasn't as much of a, I mean, there was a difference, but it wasn't as much as they expected to be. So in this case, they were asking mortality salience to give their thoughts on George W. Bush. So they tricked the mortality salience participants to ask questions like, hey, how does George W. Bush make you feel? Was he a good president? Was he good on protecting the country? Was the war on terror appropriate? And what their findings was that mortality salience participants actually gave a really good feedback on George W. Bush and actually loved the idea of his war on terror. While the other participants who had nothing to do with 9/11, they gave very bad negative feedback to George W. Bush. So the terror management theory, the one that the mind dissociates from one trauma to another and tries to make yourself mentally more better and just get over that fear, comes into play, because it actually helps or shows these participants that did support George W. Bush, it shows that there was a big dissociation, and there was a big dissociation for the George W. Bush findings. Like these people were more the sorry the malins the salient geez the mortality salients supported more George W. Bush than other people who didn't experience the whole 9/11. So that was the first article that was one of the big findings, and that's why this the first article was very crucial, because it actually showed a whole different side of participants who had anxiety, who had a defense mechanism to get over it or move on or just try to ignore that ever happened to you. So obviously the damage solution was that most people after 9/11, there was a big spike of general anxiety disorder. And most people, I think it was between 6 to 12 months, reported an anxiety disorder, and they went to a clinic to seek help. And these clinics did say, were these anxiety related to 9/11? Most people said yes, they were related to 9/11, and they were in fear that they were going to die soon, or this was going to happen to them again. Most of these participants were between the ages of 20 to early 30s. It affected more the minorities than whites. I don't know why. It really did. And the article didn't go really into why it affected more minorities than whites, but it did. The mortality service, the mortality salience, the survey came back significantly high, and it also showed that if you were a New Yorker at the time or lived in New York, you were 3 times more likely to develop a general anxiety disorder or have a fear of mortality salience. Especially mortality salience was actually more effective if you were in your early 30s, mid 30s. So it shows right here, every year it goes up from 2001, 2002, and 2003. Every year, and they always do on September 11th, it shows that it goes higher and higher. So this is my presentation. Thank you, and just remember, if you are experiencing anxiety disorders or any form of, I guess, mortality salience, seek help. Talk to your doctor, talk to your primary doctor, try to find a therapist to talk to a friend or a family member. Just be sure that you're not alone in this, and always seek help.